All right, so our first stop on our exploration of the principles of design is with emphasis. And even more specifically, we're going to be talking about how photographer Fan Ho uses tonal contrasts as a way of accomplishing visual emphasis. Okay. So, obviously, when you're talking about emphasis, you're talking about showing the viewer something. Everybody, when you look at any work of art or anything really, there's going to be something that you look at first, and there's going to be kind of like a hierarchy of things that you look at after that. In art, we usually talk about how the eye moves through the piece. um, it's always got to start somewhere, and the visual emphasis of your photographs is not something that's just going to be kind of randomly chosen. That's a creative decision taken on your behalf when taking the photograph, and it's part of framing, and it's part of um, setting up your tones and your colors and all of that, all of those kind of instantaneous decisions that you make in the moments before the photograph is actually taken. So today we're talking about how you can do that, how you can get visual emphasis on something by using contrasts. Now, Fan Ho is a film photographer, so he's working in black and white, but anything that we mention when we're talking about tonal contrasts, we could also be talking about color contrasts. Again, not in this particular case, but in general, just keep in mind, since you may not be working in black and white, that this is something that's more or less interchangeable. So the thing with contrasts, and we'll go to this image first, um, probably one of Fan Ho's most famous works. Um, the thing with contrasts is that if you provide the viewer with a certain area of really stark contrast, people will automatically want to look there first. In the case with this particular photograph, it's probably not much of a surprise to say that the visual emphasis of this photograph is on this figure of this woman leaning up against the side of this building. Um, and there's a lot of reasons why that's true. But right now, we are talking about tonal contrasts. So within that context, um, she is a relatively dark figure on a relatively light background. So that strong contrast between her dress and her hair and the bright kind of concrete wall behind her um, draws our eye there first. We see something similar happen in this photograph where this figure is moving in between these two shadows of these two buildings. And so the stark contrast of that person and their shadow in that bright ray of light provides a lot of tonal contrasts, which draws our eye there first. Here's another good example. Looking through these windows here, we have these three figures. They are silhouetted against a very bright background. So there's a lot of tonal contrast there, which draws our attention. Um, I guess lastly, we could take a look at this photograph as well. This is kind of really bright white wall is kind of cut into by two major visual elements. The first of which is the window, which again is very kind of dark and detailed against a very bright and nondescript foreground. So our eye is drawn there first. And also, you get a little bit of visual emphasis on the sign because, again, the sign is relatively dark against a relatively light background. So that is how you might try to accomplish visual emphasis through the use of tonal contrasts. And again, you could have that same conversation talking about color.